Dear colleagues, just a few minutes of technical question and we will start it. So welcome, good morning, colleagues. Today we will speak about really important issues. Our site event will be concentrated on the situation of people who exactly kidnapped from the territory of Ukraine and what happened next. When we speak about kidnapping, we speak about exactly different way how Russia Federation catch Ukrainians, civilians, first of all, but same with the war prisoners, we will have a possibility to speak about them same. And today, supplementary dimension meeting about torturing and about what happened with people when they're totally controlled by some forces. So now we will speak about concrete these issues. And presentation we'll be showing it screening and here, oh, sorry, I'm not started from myself. My name is Alexandra Romantsova. I'm Executive Director of Center for Civil Liberties. It's a human rights organization who documented war crimes from 2014. And exactly we're one of the co-founders of initiative which called Tribunal for Putin. Exactly, we started like a technical names for that, but we leave it because it's bring us main idea what we want at the end. And all my colleagues, I will represent them one by one, will give the floor. All my colleagues are the members of initiative which documented war crimes, working with different groups of civilians, or we have even hold the coordination headquarters for the treatment of prisoners of war here, which can represent which can represent exactly full situation with whole groups. So, Natalia, are we prepared with presentation? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, violation of international humanitarian law regarding to Ukrainian imprisoned by power structure of the Russian Federation as a result of aggressive war. It's just a part of what we find during the documenting of war crimes. Next one. We have a database of such episodes which Tribunal for Putin, joining more than 30 organizations together, documented, and you see that it's more than 37,000 cases. And it's open data, which we're showing in our website. At the end, we give you the link for this. So every day, it's plus 200, 300 cases, which we find for whole the territory of Ukraine, include exactly territory of occupied by Russian forces. So our database give the names of the crimes by standards of Rome Institute. And we just want to show the few episodes which connecting with today's topic. One of them is unforced disappearance of person. You will see that in our database we have more than 2,000 cases of this. And as you see at the map, it's happened for whole the territory which exactly was occupied by Russian forces. So it's not happened because one troops have a mad or one officer just crazy and give the order like this. No, it's happened everywhere, exactly when occupation happened and when we have a period without releasing. We need to just remember that, yeah, sure, all of us know about Bucha, but every day small Bucha happen for whole the territory occupied by Russia Federation. Every day kidnapping, every day exactly disappearance forcibly, which happened with the people during the days when Russians are there. One more episode category, it's torturing. and inhuman treatment of civilians and military persons. We have 447 cases in our database, and this exactly one of the biggest growing category. Why so? Because we have a possibility now, thanks for our collaboration with headquarters, speak with people who coming with exchange from Russia side. I mean, Ukrainian soldiers who spend there sometimes, and we have more and more information, more details. And today, with us, Victoria, one of the civilians who spent time in at captivity, and you can exactly put all the questions, what happened there, and she will speak about that during her speech. So we will start it from Vladislav about situation which exactly in this category give them. Please.
Good morning. My name is Vladislav Dolshko. I'm a lawyer at the Ukrainian non-governmental organization, the Kharkiv Human Rights Protection Group, a co-founding organization of the Tribunal for Putin Initiative. The problem of severe deprivation of physical liberty and torture in the temporarily occupied by the Russian Federation territories of Ukraine, as well as the deportation of Ukrainians to the Russian Federation with subsequent captivity, are among the priority work directions of the KHPG and the T4P initiative. Today, I would like to represent developments of the Kharkiv Human Rights Protection Group in the field, which are based on the research of the information already gathered by the KHPG and the other T4P initiative participants. This information is constantly being updated and clarified. It is worth starting with the process of capturing civilians. We use word capture and not, for example, detention or arrest, because the data we have collected suggests that in most cases, there are no procedural guarantees for the victim. One of the frequent scenarios can be summarized as follows. Armed soldiers approached a civilian on the street or broke into a house, restricted their ability to move, tied hands or put on handcuffs, checked documents and phones, conducted the so-called search, actually just took everything that they wanted from the houses, beat the victim with hands, feet, or the gun stocks, put a bag or cap on his head and tightly wrap around with a scotch tape, threw a victim into a car and left in a known direction. Among the captured civilians are many veterans of the anti-terrorist operation who fought long before the start of the full-scale phase of this war, former law enforcement officers, and simply people with proactive, pro-Ukrainian position. Although the victims also testified that allegedly Russian military could capture anyone for any reason, from a found pro-Ukrainian picture in the phone's memory to the banal, I just didn't like you. Some of the captured civilians who were severely deprived of physical liberty in the temporarily occupied by the Russian Federation territories of Ukraine were held in specially equipped premises with inhuman conditions and subject to repeated torture. The victims were tortured most often during the so-called interrogations, which have nothing to do with the interrogation in the criminal procedural sense of this word. The victims we spoke with testified that they were taken into a room where allegedly the Russian military soldiers were brutally beating and torturing victims with electric currents or by trying to cut off some body parts, ears, fingers, or in other ways, while asking victims questions and abusing them, including due to the fact that they are Ukrainians and communicate in Ukrainian. However, we also recorded cases when captives were beaten simply for pleasure. Several victims who were held in one place testified that in front of them, allegedly the commander of the Russian military, apparently very drunk, beat the prisoners with a wooden bat. One of the beaten captives was a child, 17-year-old boy, and the other a veteran. Both of the captives survived that day. However, according to the data that we have, the veteran was still taken to the territory of the Russian Federation, and nothing is known about his future fate at the moment. KHPG lawyers represent the interest of these victims in national criminal proceedings and prepare these cases for the submission to the Office of the Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. Regarding the forced deportation of Ukrainians to the Russian Federation with their future captivity and torture, the KPG can distinguish two groups of methods of carrying out such deportation. The first group should include cases when allegedly the Russian military captured victims in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, and according to the victims' testimony, took them for a certain period to the territory of the Russian Federation, somewhere not far from the border, or to the checkpoints on the border between Ukraine and the Russian Federation, where they were held captive, tortured, and subject to so-called interrogations, and then returned to the temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine, and then released. The second group consists of cases in which people were captured by allegedly the Russian military in the temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine, held for a certain time in places of severe deprivation of liberty, also in the temporarily occupied territory, and then transported to the territory of the Russian Federation. And after that, any detailed information about their future fate is absent. In some cases, with the help of a lawyer, relatives managed to obtain documentary information that the person is being held in the Russian Federation. Sometimes it is possible to get only the information from unofficial sources, in particular, but not only from other people, from Russian groups in social media networks or propagandistic stories of the Russian mass media. It is worth noting that in some cases, that is cases when with the help of large-scale legal action, and we usually give this as an example how it may be done, but it actually didn't work. So it is possible to launch legal procedures to establish the place of victims' captivity. One family was tricked into being deported to the Russian Federation, and victim himself, a university student, was captured. When a part of the family managed to return back to Ukraine, they started a search for him in the territory of the Russian Federation from Ukraine. The other part of the family, which remained in the Russian Federation, hired a Russian lawyer who initiated the relevant court proceedings in the Russian Federation. However, the court proceedings did not have any success in terms of the release of the victim, since the court of the Russian Federation noted that the victim, quoted, is detained for illegal actions while he is not involved in any criminal cases. He is not being prosecuted, and therefore he does not have any procedural rights, in particular to a lawyer. From our experience, we can say that the group of the cases where the victims were allegedly deported to the Russian Federation, where they probably continue to be held captive, it's the most difficult, not from only the legal point of view, but regarding the moral damage to the relatives of the victims, who cannot even be sure that their loved one is still alive. And it's also worth noting a couple words about so-called filtration, which should be understood as a violent, unregulated process of clarifying the personal data of people, their social contacts, views, and attitudes towards the Russian Federation, their safety for the authorities or the services of the Russian Federation, as well as their readiness for consent to cooperate with the authorities of the Russian Federation. As far as we know, the so-called filtration is usually carried out in two stages. In the first stage, the victim must undergo documented checks, fingerprinted, and an initial interview, which are often accompanied by physical violence. Those who does not pass the first stage are sent under armed escort for a longer and more intense form of so-called filtration. Those who did not pass the second form, they usually disappear without even a single trace. At the end of my speech, I would like to emphasize that the information described and the stories of real people constitute only a tiny part of all probable international crimes related to severe deprivation of physical liberty and torture allegedly committed by the Russian military against Ukrainians. We continue to do our work documenting, researching the represented interests of the victims at the national and international levels with the aim of restoring justice, compensating for damages, and punishing the guilty. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Vladislav. I'm just added that Vladislav represents Kharkiv Human Rights Group, one of the oldest, exactly, human rights group in Ukraine, which started working from the Soviet period. And they're exactly author of our methodology of documenting war crimes and our database. And Vladislav, member of group, which now prepared about this kind of case, special submission for International Criminal Court. Thank you, Vladislav. Our next speaker, Margarita Tarasova, executive representative, Ukrainian Helsinki Union, and one of co-founder Tribunal for Putin. Margarita, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Union has been monitoring war crimes and IHL violations in the places of deprivation of liberty since March 2022. These places include not only prisons, pretrial detention centers, but also school social institutions, nursing homes, hospitals, etc. And we documented a number of cases of torture, injuries, murders, mock executions, deportation, etc., that happened in such places under Russian occupation. I would like to highlight just some cases that we identified in 4 facilities in Kherson region. These facilities include Kherson pretrial detention centers, Kherson police detention center, penal colony number 10 in Daryivka, and penal colony number 19 in Kherson. All these places spent some time under occupation, and we were able not only go to these places, but also talk to witnesses and victims. And these cases need further investigation, of course, but at least we have some patterns to share. On May 11, Russian forces took control of Kherson pretrial detention center in order to suppress the alleged resistance of inmates. They killed an unarmed prisoner. As they later explained, he didn't obey the orders. Interviewed witnesses identified at least 5 violent deaths in Kherson pretrial detention centers. A woman who was held in police detention center in Kherson for months told us that she saw a shot body that Russian put in front of her cell as a type of psychological torture. Another types of torture we identified include beatings, mock executions, electric shock, sexual violence, threat of torture, murder, and deprivation of food, water, medical aid. Detainees under Russian occupation weren't allowed to walk outside or take showers regularly. People who weren't tortured physically reported that they could hear screams of other people all the time, or see the people with severe injuries as a result of torture, because we consider it to be as part of torture itself. We also identified a number of sexual violence cases. This type of violence was mostly used as a type of punishment, or type of to threat people to suppress the alleged resistance. One of the witnesses reported that she saw and heard that Russian administration gave a direct order to one of the detainees to rape another detainee. We also identified the several cases of forced disappearances and deportations. Witnesses from Kherson pretrial detention center told us that people were disappearing all the time. It's the quote. According to the testimonies of witnesses, prisoners from penal colony number 19 were transferred to the territory of Kherson region that is still under Russian control, in particular to the Holopristan colony number 7. Estimated number of forcibly transferred prisoners is around 2,000 inmates. And another violation we identified forced labor for military purposes and conscription to Russian army. Prisoners from penal colony number 19 in Kherson region said that Russian forces used the facilities to place machinery, military vehicle, equipment, and forces. Prisoners themselves were used for lootings and digging trenches in the city. And some of the inmates whose official terms were about to finish were offered conscription to the Russian armed forces. And we have some testimonies identified that those prisoners who were forcibly transferred to occupied territory are also conscripted to Russian armies, but it still needs confirmation. So this is just to highlight the common pattern we see with prisoners. We also see that Russia treats Ukrainian prisoners, both those who had been serving their sentence before occupation and those who were newcomers, with huge violence, and we see that these patterns actually repeats the patterns that we see in Russia, how Russia treats their own inmates, especially those who serve in the life sentence. So that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Margarita. And just same add that Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Group working with a separate case like lawyers and support families of the people who detainees and work not only with UN bodies, but with the European Court of Human Rights. Thank you, Margarita. And next, our speaker, it's Victoria Andrusha. She's a civilian. But she's just a teacher of maths, but she was kept and exactly taken from parent home and put in the prison in Kursk. So she will more detailed explain and give you direct testimony what exactly happened with the prisoners, civilian prisoners, and exactly women civilian prisoners. Vika, time is yours.
At the end of March, the Russian military who had been occupied the territory of my village broke into my parents' house, where I had also been signed the beginning for the full-scale invasion of the Russian Federation in the territory of Ukraine, in order to search and find weapons and ammunition. When my mother said that the house had already been inspected, the commander said that he not seen it and would do it again. We were called Banderas, separatists, and nationalists. When I asked why you come to such conclusion, they ordered me to keep silence and say that they were told everything about me. After some time, a mobile phone found in the room, identification document were taken, and a few minutes later, I was already ordered to pack my things and live with them. This is how my kidnapping story began. 2 days later, I and other civilian men were sent to the territory of the Russian Federation. At first, we were on the territory of tent camp for military prisoners. We live in tents to keep warm, heated to tents themselves with stoves, and the opportunity to wash and bath only once every 10 days. Then I and another prisoners, they were both military and civilians, were transported to the Kursk prisons number 1. The first things that everyone has here after arriving is the admission to the institution. After the first interrogation, everyone was accepted with the use of brute physical force and special means, beating with sticks, hands, fists, and the use of stun guns. During this action, I was threatened that they could kill me, that they could cut off parts of my body and burn me alive. And then they tried to do it to me. After that, they carry out sanitary treatment, where they started to shave hair and only then put in seals. Except physical violence, there is contained psychological abuse, humiliating a person's honor and dignity. One of the psychological factors of influence is that after everything was done to you, you had to show your own body on a video and say that in this institution, you were not beaten, no special measures were used, then you are treated well, that you have proper medical care and nutrition. In all prisons where I was, since is several prisons and women colony, we were forced to perform patriotic pro-Russian songs according to their time. The Russian national anthem was given special importance. We woke up and went to bed with it. In some institutions, we were forced to walk and sometimes sing songs or read poems in which we were supposed to ask for forgiveness in Russians. Every day, being in an information vacuum, we were told that nobody needs us in Ukraine, that they do not want to take us, that they do not expect us here, that here is almost nothing left of Ukraine. Being in such condition, you get the impression that your brain is degrading. You don't feel yourself and personality. Being in a prison, the most important rule was to survive in any conditions. This rule was and is for every Ukrainian one of the goals that we achieve every day during the last year in the struggle for the right to live in our free country. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Victoria have enough courage to give us permission. We do special film, documentary film about her story. Thank you again. And you can see it in Center for Civil Liberties YouTube channels, and we show it in some channels in Ukraine. So this Victoria's story started the beginning of understanding what happened with civilians and what kind of scale of problem we have. But exists one really important category of captured people. It's people who between of understanding what that mean civilian of war prisoners, because it's a medicine worker. A lot of them have a military position because they are part of military troops at Ukraine army, but all of them exactly have a main mission to save the lives. And now they are a really big important group at prisoners of war, civilian prisoners, is like from both sides. I give the floor Andrei Krivtsov, who exactly represent civilian union. So it's just like NGO, just initiative, Military Medicine of Ukraine. Andrei, the floor.
Thank you. My name is Andrei Krivtsov. I'm chairman of Military Medics of Ukraine. But before I start my report, I want you to think why we all are here. Listen to a few scary stories and then express our deep concern, or coming out of here and do something to stop terrorist countries. Think about it, please. Russia is destroying Ukraine's healthcare system. They destroy hospitals, kills and capture military medics who are non-combatants. They are holding captive seriously wounded soldiers who must be repatriated. It is a well-known fact that prisoners of war in Russia do not receive proper medical care. In May last year was published the letter by Ukrainian military medic who was a prisoner in a Russian concentration camp. In this letter, he calls on the world community to save his work. Seriously wounded military who have been held captive by Russia in inhuman condition. In inhuman condition, as well as doctors who could treat them, but even in this, Russia refused them. You can find this letter and some more testimonies at our website. Ukraine, in accordance with international rules of war, returns seriously wounded prisoners of war to Russia, returns and does not require anyone to exchange. So, as you see on the slide, on March 24th, last five seriously wounded fighters were unilaterally returned to Russia. In her turn, Russia refused to obey international laws and holds in captivity at least 800 seriously wounded Ukrainian prisoners of war. This slide shows the Mariupol hospital. Crossed photo is Mariupol hospital before invasion. On March 16, 2022, it was finally destroyed by an air bomb after long shelling. Some doctors and patients after this air bomb died on the spot. The survivors took refuge at the Ilyichia plant and Azovstal. You can also find some witness testimonies of military and civil doctors from Mariupol on our side. Here you can see faces of 82 military women captured at Ilyicha plant in Mariupol. Only photos, because their names, in the best traditions in Nazi teachers of Russia, were posted in Russian telegrams and her names replaced by serial numbers. Photos of faces and serial numbers of these women. Most of these women are non-combatants. Part of them are military doctors. Look this photo. This is the same photos. In the center is Mariana Momonova, military doctor, pregnant, spent 5 months in Russian captivity. Magical for every woman months of her first pregnancy she spent in Russian captivity. She was exchanged a few days before the birth. Bottom row, center of the bottom row, girl in black sweatshirt, 27 years old girl, military medic. She's my young brother's wife. After returning from Russia, her weight was 35 kilograms. She and her colleagues, Valia, Lena, Marina, and others. During their captivity, they was in 3 Russian prisons, in Taganrog, in Kursk, and in Belgorod. They were beaten with electroshockers, tortured. Russian soldiers practiced hand-to-hand combat techniques on them. Alexander Nagovitsyn, military medic, who was rescued 2 weeks ago, spent almost half of a year in solitary confinement. During all this time, he saw only 5 people, his executioners, and no one time the sky. As in August 2022, at least 99 military medics was in captivity. At least 67 military medics are considered missing to the refusal of the aggressor country to confirm the facts of captivity. In that time, these people are shown in Russian propaganda photos and videos. We know about all of them. Now, only our organization takes care of 41 captured military medics families. During last year, only 33 military doctors were saved as part of the exchange. Yesterday, families of captured military medics went to embassies of your countries in Kyiv and asking for help. We appeal to you a request to save Ukrainian military medics and seriously wounded soldiers. We urge you to force the aggressor to release them from captivity. Because if we all don't stop Russia now and together, we, Ukrainians, will still to exist, and you will be the next. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrei. And last our speech here, because next we want to open the discussion. We want to represent exactly coordination headquarters for the treatment of prisoners of war, and speaker Victoria Tsimbaluk. It's a really important body now in Ukraine, which each family who exactly know that their relatives in captivity going sometimes few days of the week, and they hold the information about situation and about possibilities of exchange. I'm just remind that this event now. This event now translated so at the online. So it's some of part of information can be openly pronounced here, but you can always ask like meeting with Victoria and Bogdan, who is represent here headquarters, and ask more information for your diplomacy channels. Victoria, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. I represent the coordination headquarters for the treatment of prisoners of war. I need to say that our job, it includes not only the category of prisoners of war, as the war, that's the matter of all the country. And as we were supposed to work only with the prisoners of war to keep their rights, but it happens so that the families, not only of prisoners of war, started coming to us, and of course we couldn't say no. Or and then families of missing people families of that people, they started addressing to us. So, and that's a huge scale of work every day. And in our main office and our regional offices in Ukraine. So I'd like to give a couple of words about the coordination headquarters to understand the whole thing that we do and all the job that we represent. So the coordination headquarters was established on the 11th of March in 2022. That's an institution which coordinates the job of different institutions, ministries, and as well as public associations. Their coordination headquarters carries out their work on the exchange of prisoners of war, the return of illegally detained persons, collects information on the possible locations of missing persons, ensures the repatriation of the bodies of the dead, encourages enemy soldiers to surrender, carries out outreach work with relatives of prisoners of war, which we regarded to be a unique experience of the coordination between the public and state representatives, makes appeals to international structures and influential persons on behalf of the country and also on behalf of the individuals. We also provide psychological assistance and professional legal and procedural consulting services to relatives of defenders of Ukraine. We deal with hundreds of requests every day. And we also work with the Prosecutor's General Office and other institutions and organizations to collect the information and proofs of Russian violation of humanitarian law. First of all, we need to say that Russia shouldn't have invaded our territory. Having started the war, Russia continues breaching the international humanitarian law, capturing civil and military, failing to provide the guaranteed rights for both categories. They are tortured, beaten, human honor and dignity are humiliated. About the conditions of detention of Ukrainian prisoners of war by Russia. So in the temporary occupied territories and in the territory of Russia, and sometimes some of them are kept in the territory of Belarus, these conditions are inhuman. Insanitary conditions, shortage of food, drinking water, overcrowding of detention cells, lack of sleeping places, insufficient medicine, and lack of proper medical care, lack of elementary personal hygiene products, seasonal clothing, etc. A lot of breaches of law has been reported today and yesterday. So I don't want to repeat it one more time, but these are the cases of ill treatment, torture, and there should be some punishment and some of all of these actions, because as we can see, in all the cases, that's not one unique person from Russian Federation who decides to commit the torture. We need to remember that if there is a desire to commit an act of inhumanity, they will do it. If they feel that there is no consequences and no punishment for all these actions, so they commit these inhuman actions. So every time when there is a choice to kill or not, so to kill or save, they choose kill. And when there is a choice to rape an underaged, so they choose to commit that crime. So, and in the group of soldiers, of Russian soldiers, there is one is who is eager to commit the crime. There is no one in their group who will say stop. They just make the rank of someone who will be the next, but no one is saying stop it. So that is the problem. So we can't see that in this group of Russian troops, there is one sane person who would say no or stop it. So there is no barrier between, no difference between a civil or a prisoner of war who is military. So they see no difference. Is it a child? Is it an adult or elderly? So we need to say, and I would like to mention that there should be the punishment for all of these actions. And that's what we are working on. We have here the representatives of the ombudsman that we work very closely. And in all our centers, in our Kyiv office, in our regional offices, we have the representatives of the ombudsman office to see and to show that we are a civilized country. We also want to protect the rights of all the Ukrainians, of all the humans here, because we are civilized. And we are eager to ask for help of the civilized world to protect and to assist us. Yeah. So, and here I can see a couple of how to use it. You have heard a lot about the terrorist attack in Olenivka. That is the result of it. So it's only the picture. There are 100 of them. And you can't even imagine what is happening on the national level, because we can see here, we are talking about the life of one person, detained person or a missing person, but there is also a group of, and all the family of relatives who stay in Ukraine and who are waiting for the news where their beloved is. But Russia doesn't give us any information on where they are kept, or they don't give the exact number of prisoners of war that they are keeping. A lot of people that we know that they are imprisoned by Russia, they regard them to be missing. They say, no, we don't have them. And they keep hiding them. The next, that's, maybe you have heard about the public executions that Russia commits on the person on the right. It's Ukrainian military who was shot, and their video of this shot was spread all over the world. It's not only in the territory of Ukraine. So can you imagine what is happening in society, in the country inside, when people see their military shot, the prisoner of war, for just saying Slava Ukraini? So that's terrible. And there is another, that's a screenshot, but I didn't want you to show the video, of course, because it's very difficult to see all these things. But can you imagine if you're a stranger to this person and you can't see this video? How is it for a family, for children of these people, how to them to see the film which is spread over the world? That's their Ukrainian military whose head was cut by Russian soldiers. So I need to finish, right? So I wanted you to bear in mind how big and how huge their thing is, and the issue, the trouble, and the terrifying thing. And Oleg Mudrak, another prisoner of war, we managed. So after all the 6 months of captivity, we managed to bring him back via our work of the coordination headquarters. But the thing is that due to the starvation, after bringing him back to the territory of Ukraine, so he didn't survive. So that's the main issues that we wanted to present. And if you have any other questions, so I'll be glad to answer, to give you exact numbers or something. So we are open for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Is it possible to turn off? So we open to floor for discussion. Any question is, I'm just to repeat about Victoria possibility. She can speak with concrete numbers and non-covered information only with your private meeting. So, but they here during the day are open to meet. So all other panelists can answer for all your questions. Just to raise a hand, I will see that you're interesting to put the question. Please, we have a time too, please. And if it's possible, call your call yourself, please. Yes.
Yes, good morning to everybody. My name is Peter Sonner from the German delegation to the OSCE. Many thanks for all speakers for, unfortunately, shocking and depressing, in times very personal reports about torture of Ukrainian civilians and prisoners of war. Germany supports the creation of an international mechanism to prosecute war crimes and crimes of aggression. For the moment, as long as the fighting is going on, probably it is very important to have a documentation to then pass to the next steps once these mechanisms are in place. One question, you were quite quick in the very beginning, and although statistics are in a way also have their brutality because they don't show the individual suffering. But could you repeat the numbers you just gave in the beginning? I had difficulties corresponding to what was on the slides. You mentioned 30,000, or was that too much? That would be very kind.
Yeah, we documented 37,000 of cases. I mean, documented by ourselves. It's not work of prosecutor office or something like this. It's human rights defenders documented together. More than 37,000 cases, potential war crimes. So disappearance of individual, it's more than 2,798 cases, and forced disappearance of persons, it 1,140 cases. Torture or inhumanity treatment of civilians and military prisoners, 447 cases. It's what now we have in our database, but if it's possible, back to presentation, please. I just give if it's possible, back to presentation. I just give you the slide where you have exactly possibility to take, yep, this one again. This one, T4PU.org, it's our website where you have a live statistic, because even you understood we was in a trip, so 2 days, these numbers will growing. So in this T4PUA.org, in this website, you have a live statistic in 7 different languages, so German language same include. So you can find a whole the version of different kind of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and episodes of genocide. It exists statistic by target objects, and all of these new data you can find every day there. Thank you. Please, colleague, comments, questions, will be really open to discuss. So we understood that at 10 it started main panel, where some of our speakers saying will take words. We really thank you. We really glad that, like always, information about situation in Ukraine take attention here in OSCE. We are waiting that OSCE take a really active part and have a possibility send a mission to Ukraine, because now it's like more usable mechanisms which exactly need to be used for Ukraine, for biggest conflict in OSCE region, and really hope that OSCE members find the solution how to do that. And thank you for your support. Grateful for Ukraine. Thank you, and have a nice working day today. Thanks.